Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Tully, and today we are flying the Vickers Wellington Mark 10. Now, let's be very honest here. The Wellington Mark 10 is a piece of crap. See, I'm not going to say it's a piece of shit because my judicious use of the word shit and the F word and the other words have essentially distilled their meaning and their impact. I'm saying it now with a different way. The Wellington is a piece of crap. And why? Let's just tell you why. It's very simple. Let's access the historical info here. Okay? This thing was produced across the entire war. Seriously, across the entire war. This thing served during the entirety of World War II. But as it is right now, and I'm going to explain why. This thing, in real life, had stupendous engines, a freaking quad gun, a freaking dual gun, and guns on the side, as you can see here. This thing had a geodesic internal steel airframe. Then again, the Wellington Mark 10 had a light alloy frame, but never mind, meaning that this thing was amazingly, ridiculously durable. Obviously, if you took it direct from a flat cannon, it's not going to survive a lot, but still. And overall, it was a good plane. But let's just look at this. Let's compare this to other tier 10. This is a tier 10 bomber. This is part of the Wellington line, starting at tier 7, ending up at tier 10. Then you have Lancaster at tier 15. The Lancaster used to be at tier 16, which is just fucking stupid. Now it isn't now. It's 15. Now, Wellington Mark 10. It's a tier 10. Let's see. Max speed, 368 kilometers per hour. 368. Let's compare with the year 2. 418. Let's compare with this one over here. 370. Let's compare with this one over here. 476. Need I say a lot? You've seen the Dawn Ryu in flight. This thing is bad. This thing is a top speed of 368 kilometers per hour, minus 7 because that's my load. It will not go past 350 in a horizontal line. Ever. You're going to have to dive if you want to go beyond 368. Secondly, at turn time, 43.8 seconds. That's actually true. This thing does not turn very well. Except if you dive and achieve your near terminal speed, you can essentially bleed all that speed in an instant, but you can turn faster than a zero once. The rate of climb is terrible. You cannot climb at all. Period. Secondly, these are 7.7s. So the fact that it's a quad gun doesn't mean a lot. In fact, it doesn't mean anything. Because this thing is going to go up against stuff like the BF-109 G2 and maybe the BF-109 G6 and definitely the BF-109 F4. These things are highly equipped to deal with the Wellington. In arcade, it's actually more useful in arcade than it is in historical. In historical, it's just terrible. And there's another reason why. This is the load. Notice that these are torpedoes. The Wellington Mark 10 did in fact serve as a coastal torpedo bomber. You cannot work as a torpedo bomber in this game with this aircraft. It doesn't really work because no one's going to cover you and you need cover. Secondly, this thing is intended for high altitude level bombing, meaning it's supposed to stay at a very high altitude, stay level, stay horizontal, and just drop bombs. But look at the fucking load. 250 pounds. That's just over 100 kilograms. The best load this thing has is 18 just over 100 kilogram bombs and 9 500 pounds. Now keep in mind that in order to destroy a single light pillbox, you need two 250 pounds or one 500 pound. This thing does not have a very good load. And you do see there's a 4,000 pound bomb. Now, because Gaijin doesn't understand how the reality works, they nerfed bomb explosive radius to hell. And now, it's impossible to level bomb moving targets. It just doesn't work. If you have to attack moving targets, which are the ones that give you more experience than Lions, you're going to have to go really low. And this thing does not work that well really low. It can soak up AI damage, not player damage. And you'll see why. Ideally, the Wellington Mark 10 is supposed to be used in conjunction with an escort. You need an escort because you're not going to survive that well on your own. And you'll just see why. This thing is not equipped to deal with what it's facing. Not at all. See that 8 to 9? That's BF 109s. Oh wait, no, never mind. That's BF 109s here. These are probably yaks, I don't know, whatever. Bottom line, in real life, the Wellington Mark 10 was incredibly suited for its purpose because it was paired with dozens more. You didn't have, like in this game, you didn't have one or two Wellington attacking a base or convoy. No, you had shit tons. You had the fucking Royal Air Force right behind you. You had shit tons of Wellingtons and you had shit tons of Spitfires covering your ass. And it didn't really matter what the Germans sent at you. They were facing a cohesive force. Do you know what happens when you get between 5 or 6 Wellingtons all firing their turrets at you? You die. It doesn't really matter if they're 7.7s. That's a lot of 7.7s. But it doesn't happen in this game. At most, you're going to have 2 Wellingtons. And they're going to be a target. Why? Because this thing does not have a properly designed flight model. The geodesic airframe that ensured its safety is not properly modeled in this game. As soon as you take the slightest amount of damage, your plane becomes uncontrollable. Your elevator, in particular, is extremely fragile for some reason. The slightest touch on the elevator is going to continuously lock it on a position which you will be forced to climb. The elevator will force you to climb. It will lock in that position. It won't flop around. It will lock. And you will essentially become dead in the water because you're going to get losing speed, stalling, going down. Gaining speed, going up, stalling, going down. Rinse and repeat until you either crash into the ground or someone kills you. Any damage to the wings turns them uncontrollable. Any damage to the rudder turns it uncontrollable. And this thing, the following problem is actually small now, but a couple of patches ago, it was impossible to fly this plane because any damage anywhere would kill the pilot. Like, you could get hit in the tail and the pilot would die. I'm not kidding. It actually happened to me. And there was a really, really high chance that if you shot this plane directly from behind, the shot would not damage anything, but would immediately kill your pilot. That was an incredibly improperly modeled flight model. It's not that bad now, but most of the time in the Wellington, if I'm not being completely blown up, it's my pilot dying. And obviously they put me in the one fucking map that doesn't have ground targets. I'm just going to leave now. See, the problem is the hardest day was supposed to be an event only. They introduced it, for like an event where you had special conditions where you can get Golden Eagles. But I don't know what happened. I think it's just Gaijin again, not knowing how to properly program matchmaking, which has been a complete and total thorn on our side for months. They have no idea how to do matchmaking. I'm sorry, Gaijin, but it's true. You suck. Okay? You know how to do a really good game. Matchmaking? Not so much. You don't know. Because now, half the time I play, more than half, I would hazard 90% of the time I play with a fucking British, I get the hardest day. And the problem is, the hardest day has no ground targets. No ground targets. And I have one fighter. As you can see, I have the Spitfire Mark 16, which is my one fighter. I have the Typhoon Mark 1B, which is a ground attacker, the Wellington, which is a bomber, and the Viewfighter Mark 21, which is a ground attacker / heavy fighter. These last 3 do not work in the hardest day. Except for the Viewfighter, maybe. And that's the point. I keep getting the hardest day with a bomber, and that doesn't really work because there's no fucking ground targets. And this thing needs ground targets. Specifically, this thing needs stationary ground targets if we're gonna ever get any money off of it. Now, keep in mind that the Germans do in fact get a premium Wellington, and if I believe it is not the Wellington Mark 10 as a previous model, and I've seen it being flown. It's actually better than the one we get here. Because I think that in real life, I think they retrofitted it with some sort of different engine or whatever. And it's much better than the one we get. And since it's premium, you get like 5 or 6 times experience in Lions. So basically what a lot of people do in Germans, I haven't seen a lot of German Wellingtons nowadays, but back when they used to use them, what they did was equip the 4,000-pound bomb, head for the nearest convoy, drop and get away. Because they would just get killed. Why? Because Wellingtons are automatically targets in this game. The second someone sees a Wellington, what happens is they become a retarded little 7-year-old. I'm sorry for the use of the R, but I just they turn into the annoying call it and another. See, told you. Fucking hell. I'm not gonna play this one. I gotta fucking use the matchmaking until I get something proper. Thing is, they just announced an event mode in the next patch, which is 1.35. This is 1.33. Next patch is 1.35. Sorry about the retarded, but I'm going to explain. 1.35 is going to add event mode, which means you can add custom parameters. Like if you're flying historical battles, you can specifically say, I want a map with ground targets. You know, so you don't get this shit. Now, why did I say the retarded 7-year-old? Do you know that 7-year-old who plays Call of Duty because their parents bought them for him? Because they freak out if the kid doesn't get what they want. You know that spoiled little retarded little 7-year-old who will immediately start screaming the second he starts losing? That's what happens to people when they see the Wellington. They immediately decide to disregard the fact that they're in a team game and they will disengage. I've seen people disengage from a fight where there was. I'm just gonna give you an example. It's one of many. It was in Germans. There was this one German guy, right? This one German guy. He was being tailed by 3 Spitfires. He was smoking, and he was trying his damn best to evade. But the second he turned to me, he literally broke off with 3 Spitfires on his tail just to get one shot at me. He got fucking blown up, and then he called me a noob. That's right. And it's happened tons of times. I don't know what happens. The Wellington is just a fucking plane magnet. The second an enemy sees the Wellington, they go straight for it. And they misspelled Britain. Battle of Britain? I mean, really? Really? I know you're Russian, but really? I mean, Jesus. Did you have fucking grammar spec? Britain? Battle of Britain Day. Are you serious? It says... my God. What the fuck is wrong with you? Battle of Britain. Victor's gonna be so pissed. Seriously. I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna tell him, Gaijin. They're gonna be so sorry. You're gonna have one mad Seishawa at you. Ah, that's good water. Come on now. Put me in the game. Don't be the hardest day. Oh, for fuck's sake! Why? Why is it the hardest day? Why? I'm in a bomber! Gaijin, you fucktards! Learn to program some decent matchmaking! Fuck's sake! Is it that hard? Is it that hard to do some proper matchmaking? Is it? If he's flying... Listen, I learned it in Linux. It's called the condition. How about this? If flying a bomber... Condition A, target is flying a bomb. Player is flying a bomber. Condition B, map as ground targets. If A, then B. Is it that fucking hard? Why are you placing me in a fighter-only map? That's the problem now. I think this is some sort of bug because apparently all the British get now is the hardest day. It's just fucking retarded. It is retarded because this is just... The game was fine, and now it's not for the British. Because all I get is the hardest day. It's amazing for fighters because the stupid-ass Germans just keep wasting all their shots and they don't have any way to reload. It's going to be the hardest day. It's going to be the hardest day. See? Told you. It's going to be the hardest day. Today is going to be the hardest day. That's the 4th fucking map. 4th. You know what? As a tribute to Eris, I shall play the 5th map, regardless of what map it is. You hear that, Discordia? Get your ass down here and give me a proper fucking map. I don't want to play the hardest day in a bomber. I'm not going to change the fucking plane. Because today we're flying the Vickers Wellington Mark 10. Fuck. We should be on planet side. Fucking Empire month. Gain points for the Empire. Yeah. Come on. Give me anything with ground targets. I'll take Korea. It doesn't have any stationary ground targets, so I have to risk myself, but I'll take Korea. Fucking Russian planes are terrible. Russian planes are terrible at hunting the Wellington, because most people who play Russians at this tier play the Yak-9T and the Yak-9K. The Yak-9T has a 37mm cannon, the Yak-9K is a 45mm cannon. Thing is, they need to line up the shots really well because the muzzle speed is terrible on those things. You can see the bullet flying through the air. Like, bam! Oh, there it goes, flying. It's gonna be the hardest day. Knew it! Eris, fuck you. Just fuck you, Eris. Fine. 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 I'll play the hardest day. I have to show you the specifications anyway. Let's just put the torpedoes in. Minimum load, 1 hour, 24 minutes. You'll feel it. Maximum load is 4 hours, 41 minutes. That's the historical load, honestly. 5th game in a row. Had to leave the previous 4. Why? Artist. Okay. This thing is going on a straight line. Also, please note that this thing does not have a cockpit view like many other bombers, but then again, I stress, this is a beta. Now, let's see this thing climb, shall we? Really shallow climb. Absurdly shallow climb. Look at that speed going down. If I go at like 10 degrees, look at the speed going down. You can stall at 10 degrees. Granted, this isn't completely upgraded, but this is a 10 degree. It's not even that, because the nose is actually pointing a bit down. From what you're seeing, it's not even 10 degrees. And it's going down like hell. This thing does not climb very well. It also has... Now, let's see this thing turn, shall we? Oh yes, the roll rate is also terrible. This thing also bleeds speed. This thing is not good. Like, not good at all. Like, I normally just hit the elevator control so I can force a turn. This doesn't work like that. Like I said, this thing was used in saturation bombing. Meaning, it just went up in the air, maximum flight ceiling, which is like several thousand meters or something. Got together with shit tons of other Wellingtons. Yeah, inverted caps. It basically got together with shit tons of other Wellingtons, like that formation there, which is with our HE-111, Einkel 111H bombers. They got into that formation, they just saturated bombing everything. And this thing, you don't get saturation bombing in this game. It doesn't work because you have specific targets like tanks or anti-aircraft, artillery, and stuff like that. It doesn't really work. You don't have saturation bombing. You don't have the stuff that this thing was made for. As such, the Wellington is not at home in this game. Period. And I'm gonna get killed in one shot. Look at that. PBM P-47. Also, this thing has 2 modes. It has the, it's going to be destroyed in the fucking minute mode, or it's going to last the entire fucking game mode. Oh! Oh, fuck you! Oh! Feck off, Thunderbolt. Now, paradoxically, keep in mind that the gunners in this game are really poorly See? Couple of hits. And now I'm going down. See? Becomes... Oh, nice. First strike! Hooray! At least I killed someone. See? It becomes impossible. I can't lift the wing. I'm slamming down the wing control. I can't lift the wing. It becomes impossible. I got scraped by a doe. A doe. It becomes impossible. Paradoxically, like I was gonna say, the gunners are really poorly programmed, and Gaijin is, I don't know, I think they've pretty much just given up because they refuse to fix it. Gunners are terrible, they always were terrible, and as far as I'm concerned, they'll always be terrible. AI gunners, if you take direct control and you actually try to use them, if you get it aiming, you can inflict some serious damage. Like you saw, I took down the fucking Thunderbolt. It went down. I didn't destroy it, but the gunner's job is not to destroy the plane. It's to turn it unflyable. I used API. Now, API, as like I said, are obviously armor-piercing and incendiary bullets. If it doesn't burst into flames, it's still armor-piercing. It's not meant to destroy, it's meant to turn the plane unflyable from sheer damage. That's what it did. The Thunderbolt just crashed into the sea. But paradoxically, the best planes to use the Wellington's gunners against are Allied planes. Seriously. Allied gunners are good against Axis gunners, except for the British. I've tested it. Do you know the best planes to use the British gunners against under Wellington? Oh, they're British planes. They excel at it. They can shoot down Spitfires like nobody's business. Because, you know, British flight models are just fucking terrible. But that's the point. You're not going to have a lot of shots at your main enemies, which are the BF-109s and the Focke-Wulfs 190s. Your Messerschmitts and the Focke-Wulfs are not going to give you a chance to hit them. They're just going to go up, dive down before you can have any shot at them because, you know, the gunners aren't properly angled. They can only attack below. They can attack below or above, which is pretty much where you're going to be attacked from, either below or above. They can only attack in front, backwards, or the sides. Not a lot of fucking protection there. Basically, the Wellington Mark 10 is only good in high-level bombings, and only then, only if the enemy ignores you. I had a couple of great matches where I scored a lot of ground kills purely because the enemy ignored me. They literally just let me be. They just let me go. They were focusing on the fighters. Or either that or your fighters are so good they wipe out the enemy, leaving only one or two. And they're not going to come back for you. They're going to run away because that's what they do. They're cowards. Basically, the Wellington Mark 10 in historical battles is not at home at all. Especially not now because all you get is a hardest day. And even then, most maps have stationary ground targets that get destroyed by the ground attackers long before you get there. You're not going to get any ground targets left. Do not use the Wellington or the Lancaster. It's not worth it. At least not until a new patch where explosive radiuses actually get fixed. So, yeah, that's it. Back to the hangar. At least I scored 1 kill. Did you notice what the kill was? It was a premium Thunderbolt, an Allied plane. Granted, it was retrofitted with some German tech, but it was an Allied airframe. See how bad it is? Best planes to use with the Wellingtons against other allies. I don't think I even got any money because this thing is really expensive. Oh no, that's not that expensive. Protective vest. Now this thing does reduce the pilot kill thingy, but not that much. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Please stay tuned into the next video in which we will fly the Ilyushin II Sturmovik Russian attacker aircraft. Goodbye.